Maria Elena Rodriguez had been cleaning the Lincoln Community Center for 30 long years. Every morning at 6, she would arrive with her cart full of supplies, her worn sneakers making soft sounds on the polished floors. The community center was a big building with many rooms, but there was one room that always made her heart beat a little faster: the main hall with its beautiful grand piano. The piano was huge and black, sitting like a sleeping giant in the center of the room. Its surface was so shiny that Maria could see her reflection when she dusted it. She had touched every part of that piano while cleaning, every key, every curve, every corner, but she had never pressed the keys to make music. That wasn't her place, she told herself. She was just the cleaning lady. Maria was 67 years old now. Her hands were rough from years of scrubbing and mopping. Her back ached from bending over to pick up trash and wipe tables. Most people who came to the community center didn't really see her. She was like a shadow, moving quietly around them, as they talked and laughed and celebrated their special moments. The community center was always busy. Rich people came there for fancy parties. Young couples had their wedding parties in the main hall. Business people held their meetings in the smaller rooms. All kinds of events happened there, and Maria had seen them all. She had cleaned up after birthday parties where kids left cake on the floor. She had swept up confetti after graduation celebrations. She had wiped tears of joy and sadness from the bathroom mirrors. But Maria had a secret that nobody knew. When she was alone in the main hall after all the people had gone home, she would stand next to the piano and move her fingers in the air above the keys. Her hands would dance silently, playing music that only she could hear. She knew exactly where each note was. She could feel the music flowing through her fingers, even though no sound came out. Maria had come to America from a small village in Mexico when she was just 25 years old. She had left everything behind: her family, her friends, her old life. She came with nothing but hope and determination to make a better life. She didn't speak much English then, and she didn't have any money. Cleaning was one of the few jobs she could get. Over the years, she had learned English by listening to people talk at the community center. She had watched thousands of events happen in front of her eyes. She had seen people at their happiest moments and sometimes at their saddest too. But through it all, she had remained invisible, just doing her job quietly and going home to her small apartment each night. Nobody at the community center knew about Maria's past. They didn't know about her dreams or the music that lived inside her heart. To them, she was just the woman who emptied their trash and cleaned their messes. They were polite to her, but they didn't really know her. How could they know that every night she dreamed of playing that beautiful piano? It was the night of the biggest event of the year at the Lincoln Community Center. The annual charity gala was happening, and Maria had never seen the place look so fancy. There were flowers everywhere, beautiful white tablecloths, and sparkling lights hanging from the ceiling. Rich people from all over the city had come dressed in expensive clothes and jewelry that probably cost more than Maria made in a whole year. Maria was working extra hours that night. She moved between the tables, emptying ashtrays and picking up napkins that had fallen on the floor. The guests barely noticed her as she worked. They were too busy talking about their businesses, their vacations, and their fancy cars. Maria understood English perfectly now, but she pretended not to listen to their conversations. The evening's entertainment was supposed to be special. A famous local singer was going to perform with a pianist, and everyone was excited to hear them. But just as the performance was about to start, something went wrong. The microphone system stopped working completely. There was an awkward silence as the event organizers tried to fix the problem. People started getting restless. Some were checking their phones. Others were talking louder, and the room was getting noisy. The event coordinator, a nervous young man in an expensive suit, grabbed a working microphone and tried to keep everyone calm. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said with a shaky voice, "we're having some technical difficulties. Please bear with us while we fix the sound system. In the meantime, if anyone would like to provide some entertainment while we wait, you're welcome to come up." He was obviously joking. This was a room full of lawyers, doctors, and business owners. Nobody was going to volunteer to perform in front of hundreds of people. A few people chuckled at his suggestion, but most just continued their conversations. Maria was wiping down a table near the back of the room when she heard those words. Something strange happened inside her chest. Her heart started beating faster and her hands began to shake slightly. She looked at the piano sitting there, waiting. The lights above it made it look even more beautiful than usual. For 30 years, she had walked past that piano every day. For 30 years, she had touched its surface while cleaning but never played it. For 30 years, she had kept her secret locked away inside her heart. But tonight felt different. Tonight, something was pulling her toward those keys. Maria put down her cleaning cloth and started walking toward the front of the room. At first, nobody noticed her. She was just the cleaning lady moving around as usual. But as she got closer to the piano, a few people started to look. Then more people turned to watch. The room began to get quiet. By the time Maria reached the piano bench, almost everyone was staring at her. She could hear whispers starting to spread through the crowd. "What is she doing?" someone asked. "Is that the cleaning lady?" Another person wondered out loud. A woman in a sparkly dress laughed and said to her friend, "This should be interesting. I wonder if she even knows how to play." Her friend giggled back. "Maybe she thinks it's like dusting. Just run your hands over it." More laughter rippled through the crowd. Maria could feel hundreds of eyes on her as she sat down on the piano bench. Her hands were trembling as she placed them above the keys. The room was almost completely quiet now, except for the whispers and soft laughter of people who thought they were about to watch an embarrassing mistake. Maria closed her eyes and took a deep breath. This was her moment. Maria's fingers touched the keys, and in that instant everything changed. The first notes that came from the piano were so pure and perfect that the laughter died immediately. She began playing Chopin's Ballet No. 1, one of the most difficult pieces ever written for piano. Her fingers moved across the keys like they had been born to be there. The transformation was incredible. This wasn't the slow, careful playing of someone who barely knew how to play. This was the work of a master. Maria's hands danced across the keyboard with perfect timing and incredible skill. Every note was exactly where it should be. Every phrase told a story. The music filled the room like magic. People stopped talking completely. Phones were put away. Conversations ended mid-sentence. Even the event organizers stopped trying to fix the microphone system and just stood there listening. The room became so quiet that the only sound was the beautiful music flowing from Maria's hands. As she played, something amazing happened to Maria's face. All the tiredness from 30 years of hard work seemed to disappear. Her eyes were closed, but there was a peaceful smile on her lips. Her whole body moved gently with the music, like she was dancing while sitting down. This wasn't just playing music. This was her speaking a language that she had kept hidden for decades. The piece she was playing was known for being incredibly emotional. It starts softly, builds to powerful moments, then becomes gentle again. Maria played it with such feeling that people in the audience began to wipe tears from their eyes. A businessman in the front row had to take off his glasses to clean them. A woman near the back was crying openly. The music seemed to go on forever, but nobody wanted it to end. Maria played for 12 whole minutes, taking everyone in that room on an emotional journey they would never forget. Her fingers never missed a note. Her timing was perfect. The way she made the piano sing was something that even professional musicians would envy. As the piece built to its powerful climax, Maria's hands moved faster and stronger across the keys. The piano seemed to come alive under her touch. People could feel the music in their chests, in their hearts. Some had goosebumps on their arms. Others found themselves holding their breath. Then slowly the music became softer again. Maria brought the piece to its gentle ending, her fingers playing the final notes with such tenderness that it felt like a lullaby. When the last note faded away, her hands remained on the keys for a moment before she slowly lifted them. The silence that followed was unlike anything anyone in that room had ever experienced. It wasn't an awkward silence like before. This was the kind of silence that happens when people have just witnessed something truly special. Nobody wanted to be the first to break the spell that Maria had created. Finally, someone started clapping. Then another person joined in. Within seconds, the entire room exploded in applause. People were standing up, cheering, wiping tears from their eyes. The applause went on and on. Some people were shaking their heads in amazement. Others were still crying. Maria opened her eyes and looked out at the crowd. For the first time in 30 years, all these people were really seeing her. Not as the cleaning lady, not as someone invisible, but as the incredible musician she had always been inside. The look of shock and amazement on their faces told her that nothing would ever be the same again. As the applause finally died down, people rushed toward the piano. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. How did the cleaning lady play like that? Maria found herself surrounded by the same people who had been laughing at her just minutes before. Now they looked at her with complete amazement and respect. "Where did you learn to play like that?" asked a woman who had been making jokes earlier. Her voice was full of genuine curiosity now. Maria smiled softly and began to tell her story for the first time in decades. "I was born in a very small village in Mexico," Maria began, her voice quiet but clear. "My family was very poor. We lived in a tiny house with a dirt floor. My father worked in the fields and my mother took care of us children. We didn't have much, but we had music." The crowd pressed closer to hear her story. Even the event staff had stopped what they were doing to listen. "When I was 5 years old, our village got a new priest. Father Miguel was an old man who had studied music in the big city before becoming a priest. Our little church had an old organ that nobody knew how to play, but Father Miguel could make it sing like the angels." Maria's eyes got a distant look as she remembered. "Every Sunday I would sit in the front row of the church watching his hands on the keys. After the service I would sneak up to the organ and try to copy what I had seen him do. One day Father Miguel caught me." She laughed softly. "I thought I was in big trouble, but instead of scolding me, he asked me to play what I had been practicing. I was so scared, but I played a simple hymn I had learned by watching him. Father Miguel's eyes got very wide. He told me I had a special gift. From that day on, Father Miguel became my teacher. Every day after school I would go to the church and practice. He taught me everything he knew about music. He said I learned faster than anyone he had ever seen. By the time I was 10, I could play pieces that took most people years to learn." The crowd was completely silent, hanging on every word. My parents didn't understand why I spent so much time at the church, but they could see how happy music made me. Father Miguel told them I had the talent to study at a real music school in Mexico City. He said if I worked hard, I could maybe even go to a conservatory and become a professional pianist. Maria's voice became sadder. "When I was 16, Father Miguel helped me apply to the National Conservatory of Music. I had to travel to Mexico City for an audition. It was the first time I had ever left my village. I was so nervous, but I played the best I had ever played in my life. They accepted me immediately and offered me a full scholarship." She paused, and several people leaned forward, eager to hear what happened next. "I was supposed to start classes that fall. Father Miguel was so proud. My whole family was excited. But 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave for Mexico City, my father had a heart attack while working in the fields. He died instantly." Gasps came from the crowd. Some people put their hands over their hearts. I was the oldest child. My mother didn't speak Spanish very well and couldn't read or write. We had no money for a funeral or to pay our debts. I had to make a choice. Follow my dream or take care of my family. There was really no choice at all. Maria continued her story as the crowd listened with complete attention. "I never went to the conservatory. Instead, I worked 3 jobs to support my mother and younger brothers and sisters. I cleaned houses during the day, worked in a restaurant at night, and sold vegetables at the market on weekends. There was no time for music anymore." She looked down at her hands. "When I was 25, I decided to come to America. I thought maybe here I could find better work and send money back to my family. I came with nothing, just 1 suitcase and the address of a cousin who said she could help me find work. My cousin got me my first cleaning job. I didn't speak much English, and cleaning was one of the few jobs I could get. I told myself it would just be temporary until I learned English and could find something better. But life kept happening. I got married, had children, got divorced. There was always someone who needed me to take care of them." The businessman, who had been crying earlier, stepped forward. "But you never stopped playing, did you?" Maria smiled. "No, I never stopped playing. But I never touched a real piano again until tonight. For 40 years, I played on tables, on my lap, in the air. Every day when I cleaned this piano, I would practice pieces in my mind. My fingers would remember every note, every movement. I kept all the music Father Miguel taught me right here. She pointed to her heart, waiting. A woman in the crowd asked, "Why didn't you ever tell anyone? Why didn't you try to play somewhere?" "Who would have believed that a cleaning lady could play classical music?" Maria replied. "People see what they expect to see." They saw an old Mexican woman with rough hands and broken English. They didn't see the music inside me. Just then, the event coordinator stepped forward with tears in his eyes. "Maria, what you just did was incredible. Would you be willing to play one more piece for us?" The crowd immediately started encouraging her. "Yes, please." "Play another one." That was beautiful. Maria looked around at all the faces surrounding her. These same people who had been laughing at her were now looking at her like she was the most important person in the room. She sat back down at the piano. "This next piece," she said, "is for Father Miguel, who taught me that music never leaves your soul even when life takes you away from it." She began playing a beautiful, gentle piece that sounded like it came straight from heaven. As the music filled the room again, people took out their phones and started recording. They knew they were witnessing something special that needed to be shared with the world. Within days, videos of Maria's performance were everywhere on the internet. Millions of people watched the cleaning lady who stunned everyone with her incredible talent. The local symphony orchestra called and invited her to perform with them. A music school offered her a full scholarship to complete the education she had started 50 years ago. More importantly, the community center started a music program for children whose families couldn't afford lessons. They called it Maria's Music Program and asked her to be the director. Maria kept her cleaning job, but now she only worked part-time. The rest of her time was spent teaching children and practicing for performances. At 67 years old, she finally became the professional musician she had dreamed of being as a teenager. Her story spread around the world, inspiring millions of people to never give up on their dreams. She proved that talent doesn't disappear just because life gets in the way. Sometimes it just waits patiently inside us until the right moment comes to shine. And every time Maria sits down at a piano now, she remembers that magical night when she stopped being invisible and became exactly who she was always meant to be.